In April 2025, the West was living in a technological bubble of unmatched confidence. Christophe Fouquet, CEO of ASML, stood before a room of investors and assured them that China's attempts to crack the code of extreme ultraviolet lithography were years away. His words echoed the defiant stance of his predecessor, who had scoffed, calling China light years behind in the race for chip-making supremacy. The analysts, the experts, the entire financial world all nodded in agreement. The technological fortress, they believed, was unbreachable and the drawbridge was firmly up. But what they didn't see coming, what no one saw coming, was the storm brewing on the horizon. The truth? By early 2025, a secret laboratory in Shenzhen had achieved the impossible, a working EUV lithography machine capable of generating extreme ultraviolet light was up and running. This was not some small-scale experiment, but a massive industrial machine that filled an entire factory floor. Its existence and its functionality shattered the complacency that had gripped the West for years. The machine wasn't just an innovation, it was a clear signal that the timeline Western analysts had been touting, with its comforting gap of 15 to 25 years, was catastrophically flawed. What they thought was a secure lead had in reality already slipped through their fingers. And it wasn't a stroke of luck or a sudden burst of Chinese ingenuity. This achievement was the culmination of a highly orchestrated plan that targeted the very heart of Western expertise, ASML's own engineers. The secret weapon? A cadre of top engineers, including Lin Nan, the former head of light source technology at ASML, who had been recruited to join China's ambitious program. The offer was simple and impossible to refuse. Signing bonuses of up to $700,000 alongside generous housing subsidies to ensure their comfortable transition. For these engineers, the pull of financial incentive was overwhelming. What China wanted wasn't just their labor, it wanted their knowledge, the rarest and most valuable commodity in the world of semiconductor manufacturing. Once these engineers crossed over, they were absorbed into a classified program where their true identities were erased. Under false names, they worked in complete secrecy, their contributions shielded under the strictest national security protocols. Their first orders of business were nothing short of extraordinary. Within just 18 months of their recruitment, Lin Nan's team had filed 8 new EUV patents, each a critical breakthrough that propelled China's progress at a breathtaking pace. The rapidity of these filings not only demonstrated the value of the expertise that had crossed the Pacific, but also signaled to the world that China was no longer years away from EUV technology, it was already here. Parallel to the work of these engineers, another effort was unfolding in China, a brutal, no-holds-barred industrial campaign of reverse engineering. China's appetite for foreign lithography equipment, particularly older models from ASML and its competitors Nikon and Canon, knew no bounds. These machines, sometimes outdated, sometimes cutting-edge, were purchased through unexpected channels, including public auction sites like Alibaba. Listings for such equipment appeared as recently as October 2025, evidence of China's relentless drive to procure and disassemble whatever they could find. Once acquired, these machines were dissected in meticulous detail. A team of 100 university graduates was assigned to the task of breaking them down piece by piece. The process was not just technical, but intensely monitored, with each worker under constant surveillance. The disassembly was a high-stakes game. Those who succeeded in reassembling the components after dissection received cash bonuses, creating a fierce, competitive environment that accelerated the learning curve. This industrial-scale reverse engineering wasn't just about replicating technology, it was about getting ahead, understanding every nuance, every weakness, and every potential improvement, and the results spoke for themselves. The speed and effectiveness of China's strategy had been years in the making, a calculated effort that combined talent acquisition, reverse engineering, and state-backed funding in ways the West had failed to anticipate. While the technical prowess of Chinese scientists and engineers had been rapidly advancing, the West's complacency allowed them to operate without the pressure of meaningful deterrence. This failure wasn't just a matter of underestimating China's capabilities, it was rooted in a fundamental misunderstanding of China's long-term ambitions and the support systems behind them. The West assumed that its legal and market advantages would be enough to stifle China's progress, but they couldn't have been more wrong. Western legal frameworks, designed to prevent the theft of intellectual property and protect innovation, had long been the backbone of global technological security, but these safeguards proved utterly powerless in the face of China's relentless industrial espionage efforts. The system was built to punish individuals, to levy financial penalties and criminal charges, but it failed to account for the fact that China, as a state actor, was not bound by the same rules. The very notion of deterrence relied on a belief that the law would always be upheld, but China's ability to bypass those laws, both domestically and internationally, revealed a fatal flaw in the Western approach. Take the 2019 case involving ASML, which should have been a turning point in the West's strategy. When a Chinese engineer was caught stealing sensitive EUV trade secrets, ASML had reason to believe that the rule of law would protect their interests. The court handed down a staggering judgment of $845 million in damages, a rare legal victory meant to send a message that intellectual property theft would not be tolerated. But this was only a symbolic victory, one with no teeth. The engineer, unbothered by the judgment, simply declared bankruptcy to avoid the financial penalty. Worse still, he continued his operations in Beijing, shielded by the Chinese government, which had no intention of enforcing the ruling. The case, emblematic of the impotence of Western legal deterrence, exposed the truth. As long as China had state support, there was little the West could do to halt its rise. This event encapsulated a critical flaw in the West's strategy, its inability to understand that China's ambitions were not just commercial, but deeply intertwined with national security. While Western countries focused on individual legal battles, China took a holistic approach, integrating industry, innovation, and espionage into a state-backed mission to become a technological superpower. The legal victories in the West, like the one ASML celebrated in 2019, were only fleeting and irrelevant when compared to the power of the Chinese government, which viewed these setbacks as mere bumps in the road, easily overcome through strategic planning and internal cooperation. In this game, the West was playing a long, slow match, while China was rapidly advancing with a more aggressive and focused strategy. By late 2025, China's EUV prototype had been successfully completed, and its goals had become glaringly clear. The country recalibrated its industrial roadmap, with ambitions to produce working chips using EUV technology by 2028, followed by sustainable production by 2030. The scale and speed of their progress sent shockwaves through the industry, as the once insurmountable gap between the West and China evaporated. ASML CEO Christophe Fouquet had predicted that China's breakthrough would take many, many years, but the truth was far different. The West's timeline, built on decades of technological superiority, had been off by a staggering 15 to 25 years. What was supposed to be an insurmountable lead had been closed in a fraction of the time, and China was now in a position to challenge the West's dominance in semiconductor manufacturing. Looking back, it's clear that the signs were always there. Peter Wennink, ASML's former CEO, had warned as early as 2023 about the unintended consequences of the West's containment strategies. "You're forcing them to become very innovative. They're coming up with solutions we haven't thought of," he had said. At the time, his words were dismissed by many in the industry as alarmist, an overstatement of China's capabilities and determination. But as the events unfolded, Wennink's caution proved startlingly prescient. The West had underestimated China's ability to innovate and evolve under pressure, and now the consequences were becoming painfully clear. China wasn't just catching up, it was leapfrogging entire stages of development, rapidly closing the gap that Western leaders thought would take decades. ASML's betrayal wasn't just a technological failure, it was a geopolitical one. The same engineers who had helped build the company's dominance in the semiconductor world had, for the right price, handed China the keys to the future. This wasn't simply about skilled labor being sold to the highest bidder, it was an act of defection. ASML's most prized intellectual assets, its top engineers, had been poached by a nation intent on technological supremacy, with no regard for the rules of intellectual property or industry competition. These engineers had become instruments of China's strategy, advancing its position in the global race for EUV technology at a pace the West was unprepared for. The fortress had been breached, and the West was now scrambling to catch up. The global race for EUV technology had shifted from a contest of years to a battle for the next few months. China, with its rapid innovation and industrial might, had already seized the lead, and the West found itself playing catch-up. What was once seen as a secure, long-term advantage for the West had been erased, leaving Western powers to reckon with the consequences of their miscalculations. This was no longer a game of who could hold the lead for the longest. It was a sprint to stay relevant in a rapidly changing technological landscape. And as China's momentum continued to build, the West was finding it harder and harder to maintain its place at the top.